Good day to you all. My name is David Kwitambo. I'm going to take you through how Ministry of Education in Zimbabwe aligns itself to NDS2. I've already highlighted how Ministry of Education in Zimbabwe aligned itself to NDS1. But now I'm going to take you through how the Ministry of Education in Zimbabwe aligns itself to NDS2. NDS, as I've already mentioned, that is the National Development Strategy towards becoming an upper middle income economy. So I will be taking you through all these 10 pillars of NDS2 one by one, how each pillar and Ministry of Education aligns to each other, especially how the Ministry of Education in Zimbabwe aligns itself to each and every pillar. The first one is macroeconomic stability and financial sector deepening. By macroeconomic stability, here the vision tries to achieve maintaining low inflation, promoting fiscal discipline, that is the government expenditure must be controlled, and also creating conducive environment for investment and economic growth. And again, creating a conducive environment for investment and economic growth is one of the main things the President of Zimbabwe always highlights, that Zimbabwe is open to all. So we are saying macroeconomic stability. We are now saying banks, they are also among the key players here in this pillar, because we are saying financial sector deepening. We are expecting banks to work for individuals. We are expecting banks not to limit its services to commercial giants, to the rich. No, but we are also saying services that these banks provide, especially loans and mortgages and other banking facilities, they must also help and benefit the poor, so that the poor will improve their living standards. That's what we are talking about when we are saying financial sector deepening. Now, the big question here is, where does the Ministry of Education chip in? Where does our schools in Zimbabwe chips in? Or how does schools align itself to this particular pillar? Let's talk of inflation. We are saying in order to have economic stability, there is need to stabilize inflation, to maintain inflation. A scenario where we are maintaining prices of our commodities. We don't want to see a scenario where in our schools, school fees rises on daily basis, on weekly basis, on monthly basis, no, or on termly basis. We are saying there must be stable school fees. It must be stable. School fees must be stable. Where we are saying, as a ministry, there is no school in Zimbabwe which increases its school fees without approval of the ministry. Every school, for it to increase its fees, they must sit down with the SDC. After sitting down with the SDC, parents will vote. After parents vote, then the proposed fees will be submitted to the PED, and then the PED approves or disapproves it. By so doing, the Ministry of Education is regulating school fees increase. So we have scenarios where fees can only increase annually. That is the shortest period that fees can increase. We don't have scenarios where fees increases every month or every term. So there's need to pass through procedures that stipulate that only the PED approve the fees. By so doing, we are maintaining the school fees. By maintaining school fees, we are saying we are now maintaining, it's part of, not exhausted too, but it's part of the process of stabilizing prices in Zimbabwe. Because we are saying teaching service, it's a commodity, teaching service, it's a product that is being sold to parents. So that commodity has its purchase price, which we are calling school fees. So if we minimize fluctuations in school fees, we are stabilizing fees, and by so doing, we are also helping to stabilize the economy. That's how our schools can align itself, or is aligning, because this was already in place before even the NDS 1 and 2 was in place. So the alignment was already in place. Now we move on to the physical discipline, where we are talking about the government expenditure, where we are saying it must be controlled. Government expenditure must be controlled, and they call it the physical policy, the physical discipline of a country. So where does schools chip in here? Schools, they do not just spend money from nowhere. Money must be spent according to the budget. Only money budgeted for products, goods or services budgeted for are the ones that we need to spend money on. And there is a proper procurement committee in place in all schools in Zimbabwe, which regulates, or which sit down to decide what to purchase and what not to purchase, and how and where to purchase and when to purchase. So by so doing, we are, in our schools, we are aligning to stabilizing the expenditure aspect, where we are saying every expenditure must be controlled. So when you control school expenditure through the procurement committee, we are also part and parcel of stabilizing the economy, because it starts from our schools. It starts from our schools, and of course goes to the government, because schools are part of the government. When you say government expenditure, if schools are part of the government, if the ministry is part of the government, the way the ministry spends is the way the government spends. Again, we don't talk about only the Minister of Finance and the Treasury guys there saying the way they spend must be controlled. No. Yes, it's true, the way they spend money must be controlled, but in our schools, we are also part of the government. The way we control our money in our schools, in our government, in our ministry, is also part of the government. So when we control our expenditure in various schools, we are also part of the government controlling expenditure. Now, we move on to exchange rate, where we are saying Zimbabwe is a multi-current economy. So even schools, we do not just fluctuate from nowhere the exchange rate, where one want to pay fees using rand, South African rand, or Namibian rand, or Botswanian pula, or British pound, or American dollar. There is a gazetted, we use normally gazetted bank rates in most cases. This is to stabilize exchange rate. By so doing, we are creating a conducive environment in our schools for investment. We are saying, as part of pillar number 1, which stipulate that macroeconomic stability and financial sector deepening will enable the country, or will demand the country to be conducive for investment and economic growth. We have seen it in the Ministry of Education, where we have private partners playing into play. A lot of people are now investing in the Ministry of Education in the name of private colleges. The existence of private colleges in Zimbabwe, it simply means that the Ministry of Education in Zimbabwe had created conducive environment for those private players to come to chip in and invest in the Ministry of Education. So we have seen investors coming in big numbers than before, where we only used to have mission schools, mine schools, council schools, only were the ones which were existing. That is, councils, mines were the ones which were investing in schools. But now we have seen now private partners, individual people, individual businessmen coming in, investing in schools. So that's a sign that the Ministry of Education in Zimbabwe had improved in making the Ministry of Education very conducive for investors to invest. Right, I think the alignment is now clear on how Ministry of Education has managed to align itself to the pillar number 1 of macroeconomic stability and financial sector deepening. Now we move on to pillar number 2, which highlight that there must be inclusive growth and structural transformation. By inclusive growth, we are simply saying inclusive growth, according to the current president, Comrade Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, says that we must leave no one, no place behind. What does that mean? Simply mean you must be included in the growth of a country. You must be included, a beneficiary of economic activities of a country. We have seen in our schools engaging in various economic projects, schools into maize production, schools being able to sell maize to the Grain Marketing Board, schools engaging into pig projects, rabbit projects, and other various projects that I cannot mention. But we've seen schools participating in economic activities. So schools are not left behind. Schools are participating into various economic activities. And we are saying structural transformation. We have seen that schools are already part and parcel of economic growth of a country, because the only way a country can grow economically is through you and I participating in economic activities. You must find something that you are able to sell, something that you are able to sell, that you are able to market. Then by so doing, you are working for the country. Working for the country simply means you are producing something that you can sell. That's what we are referring to as working for the country. So if you are lazy, you sit the whole day not producing anything, then you are not part of the vision of the country. You are a burden to the nation. Every person who is lazy, every school that does not have a viable project, a project that produces results, every school that does not sell something, it's a burden to the ministry, because we are saying our schools must engage in various projects that generates income rather than relying on school fees, because not all schools are blessed to have elite parents. Some schools have very, very poor parents who cannot pay school fees. We have got schools where most learners, 3/4 of learners struggle to pay school fees. So what are we supposed to do as schools? We are supposed to engage in various economic activities that are relevant or applicable to our schools, because projects that are applicable to school A might not be applicable to school B, because projects vary due to geographical variations. So we are saying every school must participate, and most of our schools are already into various projects. Some they are into gardens, vegetable production, some they are into goat production. So we are saying schools must engage in various economic production. And now we move on to another, to a continuation, not another pillar, but it's a continuation of the same pillar. Pillar number 2, it's which is structural transformation, where we are saying the pillar number 2 highlights that we need to move towards inclusive economic growth and structural transformation. By structural transformation, we are saying we need to shift from the mentality of only producing raw materials and sell them. We need to produce processed items so that we sell processed goods. For example, instead of selling groundnuts, we sell peanut butter. Instead of selling sunflower, we sell cooking oil. Instead of selling maize, we sell mealie meal. So we are saying our schools must have machines to process all those items. So we are saying by selling mealie meal fetches higher market than maize. Peanut butter fetches a higher price than groundnuts. So we are saying we need to process. So as a nation, we are saying we must minimize selling off raw materials and improve or increase in selling processed goods. So schools can also do that. This is how schools can align itself to pillar number 2 of inclusive growth and structural transformation. So we need to improve the mentality of industrialization in our schools at a school level. Of course, some might think of heavy industries. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about industrialization at school level. As a nation, we talk of industrialization at national level, but at school, we talk of industrialization at school level. Purchasing a grinding mill, that can be done at school level. Purchasing a peanut butter processing machine, that can be done at school level. Purchasing cooking oil processor for sunflower can be done at school level. So this is what we are talking about. Can be industrialization that is being promoted at national level can also be promoted at school level. So that's all I can say, how the Ministry of Education aligns itself to pillar number 2 of inclusive economic growth and structural transformation. Then we move on to pillar number 3, which is infrastructure and housing. What are we saying about this pillar? As a nation, there is need to improve roads, railways, airports, energy supplies, water and sanitation infrastructure. Then we need also to promote infrastructure that has something to do with the ICT. And that's the infrastructure we are talking about. Then comes to housing now. We are saying as a nation, there is need to make everyone afford to build their house. If we can't make everyone afford to build their house, at least we need to make everyone afford to buy a stand to build a house. If we can't buy a house, then at least we must buy a stand. So there must be provisions by the government to make the purchase of stands and houses affordable to the people. So where does the school now chip in? We are saying, while we are improving at national level housing schemes and housing plans, housing programs, at school level now, there is need, especially in rural schools, where there is need renovation and expansion. There is expansion which is needed for teacher accommodation, classroom blocks. So there is also need for our schools to have state-of-art houses for teachers, state-of-art classrooms, thus improving the infrastructure of our schools. So as a ministry, there is need to improve on the infrastructure within the school. Honestly, we can't have schools with the black toilets. They must have some flushing facilities. So we are saying there's need to move with time, to move with technology. So our infrastructure building is not a one thing. It's not a one thing event. We are saying infrastructure need to be continuously renovated, continuously upgraded to move with the time, and also schools must do the same. Where we are saying our teachers must have this must be one of the priority of every admin, especially in rural schools where accommodation for teachers must be at that school. So we are saying accommodation for teachers must be available. If available, must be improved to be of state of art, so that this will minimize exodus of teachers from rural schools to urban schools. So now we move on to even under that pillar, as a Minister of Education, especially in my district, in Zimbabwe district, there is also a program called Zimbabwe Education Fund. So it has done tremendously well. It started as Zimba Fund, now it's now Zimbabwe Fund, where it had helped teachers to have stands, and we have also unions. Teachers unions have also helped teachers to secure their building stands. So we are saying, as a Minister of Education, we've already aligned to it, and we are still aligning to it. We have PTU, we have ZIMTA, we have ATUZI, all those teacher union organizations have done tremendously well in helping teachers to secure stands to build their houses. So as a ministry, we have tried by all means to align ourselves to that pillar. We have operated accordingly. Then we move on to pillar number 4. Pillar number 4, agriculture, food security, climate resilience, and environmental protection. Normally when I read the word environment, I read twice or thrice. Why? Because personally I am an environmentalist. That's my area of specialization. I am an educationist, but in that education field I specialize in environment. I am a geographer and environmentalist by profession. So that pillar is the one that attracts me most. Not necessarily saying other pillars are not important, but I'm simply saying that's the pillar where I spend most of my 8 years at university studying. I spend most of my time in my university time studying environmental studies. Right, what does the pillar say? The pillar is all about increasing agricultural productivity. The pillar is all about ensuring food security. The pillar is all about promoting climate smart agriculture. The pillar is all about climate resilience. By climate resilience, what are we talking about here? We are talking about weather hazards, weather phenomenon, where we are saying maybe there is extreme heat waves, there is extreme drought. We talk about cyclones, El Nino, and the like. So we are saying these are hazards that are very difficult to completely avoid. So we must expect to live with them in our human life. As long as we are on earth, those are the things that we must be prepared to face. So what are we saying? We are saying when drought occurs, when heat wave occur, when cyclones occur, we must not beg other countries. We must be prepared to live with them. We must be prepared to have plan B to survive. We must survive in the midst of drought. We must survive in the midst of lightnings. We must survive in the midst of El Ninos. We must survive. That's what we are talking about. Climate resilience. We have to survive in the midst of those hazards. That's what we are talking about here. So we are saying, where does our ministry now chip in? These drought disasters. In our schools, we must have disaster risk and disaster management plans. That's how we must align to that pillar of climate resilience. We must have disaster management plans at our school. And then as for food security, the Ministry of Education have done very well in promoting school-based feeding programs. And some schools, they have gone to an extent of developing what they call homegrown, they say homegrown feeding programs, something like that. So what are we saying? We are saying some schools, they grow. They are into production, crop production or broiler production, and then they feed their learners. Of course, some they sell. So there are feeding programs that are underway as we are speaking, which is an alignment to the Vision 2030, where we are saying we need to reduce food security. Food must be there. People must eat. People must be well fed. So we fed our learners, but some of our learners come from vulnerable homes, come from vulnerable families. So when we feed them, we are alleviating food insecurity. We are alleviating a food shortage. Then in terms of agriculture, we have seen our schools engaging itself in crop production and other agricultural activities. So our schools have done very well in terms of aligning itself to pillar number 4, which says, which is agriculture, food security, climate resilience, and environmental protection. Then we move on to pillar number 5, which is science, technology, innovation, and human capital development. What are we talking about here? We are saying we need a science-driven economy. We need a science-driven economy. As I always say, that we need a technology-based economy. That's the kind of economy that we want. We don't want an economy where we are saying, let's have miracles or whatever, miracle money. No. That's where the problem is, where most Africans are being blamed for expecting God to just provide miraculously to them. You go to the prayer mountain, you pray, and you forget to work. That's where the problem is. So we are saying we need to work. We need to have wealth that is logic. That's what we are talking about here. So a knowledge-based economy is achieved through digital transformation, STEM education, that is promotion of science, technology, and engineering and mathematics subjects. And also we need education 5.0 model. By education 2.0, we are simply saying an education that is anchored on 5 pillars, which is research, teaching, industrialization, community service, innovation. That's all we are talking about. And already the Ministry of Education has also done tremendously very well on that pillar, because the Ministry of Education have promoted STEM education and also promoted education 5.0. Ministry of Education have done very well in that. In terms of technology, Ministry of Education had tried very well to promote the use of ICT in our schools. Ministry of Education have done very well in terms of updating our curriculum. Now we are using the heritage-based curriculum, where we are saying education must prepare people for the future that exists. Education must prepare people for the future they are going to live, or for the environment they are existing in, because we cannot teach our learners about coastal landforms where we are living in landlocked country. We are saying Zimbabwe must have an education set up that is very applicable to Zimbabweans, that is very applicable to Zimbabwean environment, so that when a learner finishes his studies, he easily move into the mainstream working industry, because that's what he or she had acquired during his learning time. Unlike a scenario where we continue teaching our learners things that do not exist, things that are outdated, we are saying the Ministry of Education has done tremendously well by introducing the heritage-based curriculum, which promotes the use of education that is oriented in our local environment, education that is technologically oriented. So the Ministry of Education has done very well, and also the use of technology in our schools. We have seen even the payment of fees, the use of electronics in terms of use of swipe machines, use of eco cash, and use of other ICT tools in service delivery, use of ICT tools in terms of reaching parents. That is the use of technology we are talking about, where our schools have already aligned itself to. Now we move on to pillar number 6, which is job creation, youth entrepreneurship and development, creative industry, sports and culture. Here we are saying this is a pillar which focuses on creating jobs that enable people to live above poverty datum line. We don't want jobs that will not change the livelihood of our people. We want jobs that gives people a reasonable income that enables them to live beyond the poverty datum line. So we want our learners to be employable. We want to create we give our learners the kind of education that makes them employable, that makes them able to work decent in decent jobs, that does not make them fall into the trap of survival hustles, hand to mouth. No, we don't want such kind of jobs. So that's the kind of education that we have in Zimbabwe. That's the reason why our education in Zimbabwe is very marketable globally. It's very marketable globally. Wherever Zimbabweans go, they are known for excelling in their various workplaces. Some, they don't even call for CV for a Zimbabwean. They just need a national ID. Are you a real Zimbabwean? By being a Zimbabwean, it's a qualification on its own. People, they know. Everyone who is educated in Zimbabwe is a very hardworking, a committed, works efficiently, effectively. They all know that. Globally, the Ministry of Education have done very well. So we are also saying in that pillar number 6, it also talks about sports and culture. We have seen as a Ministry of Education promoting also sports through the NAFU games, NASHI games. We have seen various tournaments and other youth games being promoted by the Ministry of Education. So Ministry of Education have aligned themselves very well to Vision 2030, and in particular had aligned itself to the aspect of sports and culture in pillar number 6, where we have various cultural exchange programs, traditional dance competition, and even the inclusion of the Ubuntu as a cross-cutting theme in our syllabuses. It's part of the culture where we are promoting well-cultured citizens. So Ministry of Education have done very well in that aspect. So I think Ministry of Education have done very well in most pillars that we might think about. Then we move on to pillar number 7, which is all about promoting regional development and inclusivity through devolution and decentralization, where we are saying devolution means local area must be able to control their local budgets and their own developments. That's all what we are talking about here, where we are saying we have to empower provinces and local authorities, that is rural district council, town council, municipalities. These are the local authorities we are talking about, so that we are able to promote equitable development across all regions, and also improving local governance and service delivery. So where does our schools now chip in, or how does the Ministry of Education align itself? We have already seen that there is aspect of decentralization in terms of transfers, because transfers within a district are being processed at district level, and even maybe across the province those are processed at provincial level. So we are saying some other aspects are done, some other HR, human resource activities are being done at the district level, where we have HR officers at the district level, we have the Public Service Commission at also district level. So some of these work-related activities are being done at district level. No need to go to headquarters, no need to go to head offices in Harare, although there are some other issues that need to be referred to the head office. But we are saying there is real decentralization in the Ministry of Education, which is a clear alignment of the Ministry of Education to Vision 2030, to the pillar number 7 of regional development and inclusivity through devolution and decentralization. Then we move on to pillar number 8, social development and gender and social protection. What are we talking about here on pillar number 8? Pillar number 8 is all about improving citizens' quality of life. As I have already said, that everything we talk about in terms of development, economic development, whatever development, must benefit the people, not the elite only, but the general people, be it the elite, the poor, the middle class, everyone must benefit. That's what we are talking about. So we are saying pillar number 8, there is need to improve citizens' quality of life, and also there must some be safety nets at a national level, like pensions that actually buy something. Pension, those who are pensioners, those who are given pensions, they must earn a pension that is able to sustain their life. And also, we must have hospitals with the medicines, not just empty buildings. And we must also take care of the vulnerable. So what am I saying here? Where does our Ministry of Education chip into? We have seen the vulnerable being taken care. Ministry of Education partnering with the private players like the Comfed. We have in our district, we have the Forced and other players trying to help with various scholarship and various kind of help to the vulnerable people. So the Ministry of Education has already aligned itself to that pillar, where the vulnerable are taken care of. So in that case, we are saying Ministry of Education is doing very well in terms of Vision 2030. Then we move on to pillar number 9, which is all about image building, international relations, and trade. By image building, what are we saying here? As a nation, we need to build the image of our country, how other people see Zimbabwe. Other countries or other people must see Zimbabwe as a good and a very nice country to visit or to invest in. So we are saying, as a nation, we need to fix the national brand, because we want to trade with everyone. We want to re-engage. Even those that have a negative mentality with Zimbabwe, we need to re-engage with them and saying, what you think about Zimbabwe is not the right thing, is not the right image of Zimbabwe. This is the right image of Zimbabwe, because some have just read about Zimbabwe without visiting Zimbabwe, and they've already established a wrong image about Zimbabwe, yet they never visited Zimbabwe. Information they had was probably done by people who have some hidden agenda on Zimbabwe. So what we are saying here is, we are simply saying we need to re-engage, and we need to position Zimbabwe as a reliable partner in everything, be it in trade, sports, cultural exchange. So we are saying Zimbabwe is a reliable partner, because indeed it is a reliable partner. So we are saying there is need to fix the national brand. And again, where does our school chip into? Our schools chips in. We produce the people who are going to market Zimbabwe, because our learners are ambassadors. So we take them identity, national identity. We have seen the Minister of Education putting in place the national pledge, the singing of national anthem. It instills the sense of patriotism in our learners, so that when our learners move to other countries, they will speak positive about Zimbabwe. Let us learn from other countries, especially America. They've always hide negative things about America and marketed and exposed good things about America. This is what we want to Zimbabwe and Africa as a whole. We want learners, we want Africans who are able to market their continent, market their country. So we start by learners. They must market their school in the first place. Self-identity. So this is done through Ministry of Education, because Ministry of Education is the one that produces people, is the one that produces labor force that goes to the market, to the labor market. When people go to the labor market, international labor market, then they will start to market our country. So Ministry of Education is already in operation, trying to instill sense of patriotism to learners, self-identity to learners. A good example I've already mentioned is the singing of national anthem with pride, and also reciting the national pledge with pride. That will still instill the national pride in our learners. Now we move on to pillar number 10, good governance, institution, building peace and security. What are we talking about here? We're not talking about good governance. What are we talking about? We are talking about promoting transparent accountability, the rule of law, effective public institutions, and a peaceful environment for development. That's all about governance. And we are saying we don't want conflicts, we don't want civil wars, we don't want corruption. We want to improve our public service delivery. We want to maintain peace, order, and law. So where does the Ministry of Education chip into? First and foremost, our Ministry of Education, in the Ministry of Education, we have Education Act. We have Statutory Instrument 1 of 2000. So we have these circulars that formulate the framework on how teachers are going to operate. That's the rule of law, and we comply to these rules and regulations in the Ministry of Education by complying to Statutory 1 of 2000, various circulars, Education Act, Constitution of Zimbabwe. We are abiding to the rule of law. That's what we are talking about here. So Ministry of Education has over the past and is currently aligning itself to Vision 2030 and to each and every pillar of NDS2. Thank you very much. If you have enjoyed this program, please don't forget to like and subscribe so that you continue have more of my programs. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.